My name is Vanessa Carter. I'm 27 years old, and until Valentine's Day 3 months ago, I genuinely believed I knew exactly what my future looked like. I thought I would marry Ethan Brooks. 3 years together had a way of making everything feel permanent. We lived together in a downtown apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. We had routines, shared grocery lists, matching coffee mugs we bought during a weekend trip to Chicago. The kind of small domestic details people mistake for proof that love is safe. And maybe I made that mistake too. Ethan was 25 when we met, through my cousin Danielle at a rooftop birthday party. He was charismatic in a way that pulled attention naturally. Men wanted to be around him. Women noticed him immediately. But when he spoke to me that night, he was surprisingly soft-spoken, almost shy beneath the confidence. At the time, I had just launched my consulting firm after leaving a corporate tech job that drained every ounce of joy from my life. Ethan worked in marketing for a luxury brand agency and seemed to understand people effortlessly in ways I never could. He used to tell me I made him feel grounded. I used to tell him he made life feel lighter. Funny how people can say things they fully believe in the moment and still destroy you later. My closest friend, Charlotte Hayes, had known me since college. She was 28, polished, intelligent, effortlessly elegant, the kind of woman who walked into a room and immediately made everyone sit straighter without even trying. Charlotte and I had survived breakups, career disasters, family problems, and cross-country moves together. I trusted her with everything. Which is why what happened still feels impossible sometimes. The trouble started on Valentine's Day. Charlotte and her fiancé Daniel were hosting a couple's dinner party at their house. At the time, nobody knew they were engaged yet. They planned to announce it privately that evening to close friends. At least, that had been the original plan. Ethan started getting ready nearly 4 hours before the party. That alone should have warned me something was wrong. Normally, Ethan took maybe 30 minutes to shower, throw on a fitted shirt, and fix his hair. But that evening, he locked himself in the bathroom repeatedly, changing outfits 3 different times. When I knocked on the bedroom door, jokingly asking if he was preparing for a magazine shoot, he snapped at me so sharply it stunned me. "I just want to look good tonight, Vanessa. Why is that a problem?" His tone left a sting in the room. I remember standing there, holding my mascara wand, suddenly feeling like I'd interrupted something private. When he finally walked out of the bedroom, my stomach tightened immediately. He was wearing a black silk shirt, partially unbuttoned at the chest, beneath a fitted blazer. Expensive cologne clung to the air around him, but it wasn't the outfit itself that unsettled me. It was the energy. He looked nervous, almost eager. And then I saw the watch. A silver designer watch I had never seen before. "Since when do you own that?" I asked carefully. He glanced down quickly before adjusting the sleeve over it. "Bought it last week." "For tonight?" He smirked faintly. Maybe I wanted to impress people. Something about the way he said it made my chest feel strangely hollow. The drive to Charlotte's house was painfully quiet. Ethan barely spoke to me. He kept checking his reflection in the mirror above the visor, fixing his hair repeatedly, like he was preparing for a first date instead of arriving with his girlfriend of 3 years. I tried telling myself I was imagining things. Relationships go through weird moods sometimes. People get stressed. But deep down, a cold instinct had already started whispering inside me. Something is wrong. Charlotte's house looked beautiful that night. Warm golden lights wrapped around the backyard patio. Music drifted softly through the open doors. Candles flickered across the dining tables with expensive floral centerpieces she probably spent hours arranging. There were 8 couples there total, mostly old college friends and people from work. The second we walked inside, Ethan changed. "Number." "That's not true." He stopped pretending. Charlotte greeted us at the door, wearing a stunning, dark emerald dress that hugged her figure elegantly. Daniel stood behind her, smiling proudly, with one hand resting on her waist. And Ethan looked at her like he forgot I existed. At first, I ignored it. I told myself I was being insecure. But then, dinner drinks started. And Ethan followed Charlotte everywhere. He laughed too hard at every joke she made, kept touching the small of her back whenever he walked behind her, complimented her dress 3 separate times within an hour. I watched him become a completely different man right in front of me. Worse, everyone else noticed too. My friend Rebecca quietly pulled me aside near the kitchen and asked if Ethan and I were okay. That question alone made humiliation start burning beneath my skin. Because if other people noticed it, then I wasn't imagining it. I spent most of the evening trying not to cry in public. Every time I attempted to join conversations, Ethan somehow drifted back toward Charlotte again, like gravity itself pulled him there. Meanwhile, Charlotte looked increasingly uncomfortable. That part still matters to me. Because she never encouraged him. Not once. She remained polite, but I could see the tension growing in her smile. Then, dinner started. Charlotte had organized assigned seating with handwritten name cards placed carefully around the long, candlelit table. Couples were supposed to sit together. Somehow, Ethan switched the cards. I still don't know when he did it, but suddenly he was seated beside Charlotte while I sat awkwardly across from them next to Daniel. I watched in disbelief as Ethan leaned toward her all through dinner, laughing softly, complimenting her perfume, offering her wine before even looking at me. At one point, he literally fed her a bite of dessert. The entire table went silent. Daniel's jaw tightened visibly. I felt like I was shrinking in my chair. Like everyone was witnessing the slow, public death of my relationship while pretending not to. Charlotte finally tried to create distance by standing to refill drinks. That's when Ethan intentionally spilled red wine down the front of his shirt. At least, that's what I believed at the time. "Oh my God," he laughed dramatically. "Charlotte, can you help me in the kitchen? This is everywhere." Every nerve in my body screamed. I followed them before I could stop myself. And what I saw in the kitchen cracked something open inside me. Charlotte stood near the counter, holding paper towels, while Ethan cornered her beside the sink. Too close. Far too close. His hand rested against the counter beside her hip, while he leaned toward her, smiling, in a way I had never seen directed at me. Charlotte looked trapped. "Ethan," she whispered sharply. "Stop." He laughed softly. "You know you feel this too." I froze. The sound of my own heartbeat filled my ears. Then Charlotte looked up and saw me standing there. The horror on her face told me everything. "What the hell is going on?" I asked. My voice barely sounded human. Ethan spun around immediately. And instead of shame, he got angry. "You're seriously spying on me now?" The accusation hit me like a slap. Charlotte immediately tried explaining, saying Ethan misunderstood things, but he kept talking over her, louder and louder, until guests started gathering near the kitchen doorway. Then came the moment I will never forget. Ethan looked directly at me in front of everyone and said, "Maybe if you actually paid attention to me instead of your stupid business all day, I wouldn't need attention from someone else." The room went dead silent. I think that was the exact second my relationship died. Not because he flirted, not because he humiliated me, but because he wanted to hurt me publicly. And he succeeded. I remember grabbing my coat with trembling hands while tears blurred my vision. I expected him to follow me, to apologize, to realize he crossed a line. Instead, he stayed. Stayed at the party. Stayed in that house. Stayed near Charlotte. I drove home alone that night, gripping the steering wheel so hard my fingers cramped. At 3 a.m, Ethan texted me. "Staying at my friend Ava's tonight. Need space." Need space. After publicly humiliating me. The next morning, he walked into our apartment acting like nothing serious happened. Like I was the irrational one. "You embarrassed me last night," he said casually while pouring coffee. I stared at him in complete disbelief. "You practically threw yourself at my best friend." He rolled his eyes. "Oh my God, Vanessa, I was being friendly." Friendly. That word made me physically sick. Then he smiled coldly and added, You're honestly starting to sound paranoid. And somehow, hearing that hurt even more than the flirting itself. Because deep down, I think he expected me to doubt my own reality. But what he didn't know then was that Valentine's Day had only been the beginning. I stayed at my older sister Rachel's place for almost a week. Rachel didn't ask many questions at first. She just opened the door, looked at my swollen eyes, and pulled me into her arms like I was 12 years old again. That was when I finally broke. For the first 2 days, Ethan called non-stop. Then came the texts. At first, angry. You're overreacting. You humiliated me. You always make everything about yourself. Then pleading. I miss you. Please come home. I made a mistake. Then cruel again. No wonder I felt invisible. You care more about your company than your boyfriend. Each message felt designed to pull a different string inside me. Guilt. Rage. Love. Fear. And the worst part was that sometimes it worked. After 3 years, your heart doesn't just shut off because someone hurts you. It keeps reaching for the old version of them, the one who brought you soup when you were sick, kissed your forehead before big meetings, and made you believe home was a person. But Rachel kept reminding me of what he said in that kitchen. Vanessa, she told me one night while we sat on her couch surrounded by untouched takeout, he didn't just disrespect you. He tried to make you look unstable in front of everyone. I wanted to argue. I couldn't. By the end of the week, the damage had spread. Mutual friends stopped replying. Ava, Ethan's friend, posted something vague online about women who weaponize jealousy. Then my cousin Danielle called. She was the one who introduced us. I answered, expecting concern. Instead, she was crying with anger. How could you accuse Ethan like that? He said you've been controlling him for months. My hand went cold around the phone. What? Danielle kept going, her voice shaking. He said you check his messages, that you don't let him have female friends. Vanessa, I defended you at first, but he sounded terrified. Terrified. That word split me open. Ethan wasn't just lying. He was building a version of me that people could fear. Soon, the rumors reached work. A client postponed a contract meeting without explanation. A former colleague stopped returning emails. Someone from a partner firm sent me a stiff message saying they hoped I was getting help. I sat alone in my office staring at that email for 10 minutes. My personal life had become poison, and Ethan was pouring it into every room before I even entered. Then, Charlotte broke her silence. It happened on a Thursday morning. I woke up to 67 unread messages. At first, I thought Ethan had done something worse. Then I saw the email. Subject line: The truth about Valentine's Day. Charlotte had sent it to our entire friend group. Daniel was copied too. So was I. Her message was calm, detailed, and devastating. She explained that Ethan had been making advances toward her for months. Late-night messages, compliments that crossed lines, invitations to talk privately whenever Daniel was busy, excuses to visit her office, questions about her relationship disguised as friendly concern. She attached screenshots. There was Ethan texting her at 1:12 a.m. You looked incredible tonight. Daniel is lucky. Another one. You ever wonder what life would be like if timing was different? Then another. Vanessa doesn't understand me the way you do. My stomach turned. Charlotte wrote that she had deflected him repeatedly because she didn't want to damage my relationship or our friendship. Daniel had known about some of it. They had planned to announce their engagement at the Valentine's dinner, but after Ethan's behavior, they postponed everything. Daniel added his own statement. He said he had watched Ethan make Charlotte uncomfortable more than once. He apologized for not telling me sooner, admitting they thought they could handle it quietly. Quietly. That word hurt. So many people had tried to keep the peace, and I had been left standing alone inside the lie. By noon, apologies flooded in. Danielle called sobbing. Rebecca sent voice messages. Even Ava wrote one stiff apology that sounded more embarrassed than sorry. But no apology could undo what those days had done to me. That evening, against Rachel's advice, I went back to the apartment. I told myself I needed clothes, documents, maybe closure. But some part of me also wanted to see Ethan before the truth fully cornered him. I wanted to know whether he would finally admit what he had done. I arrived around 7. His car was in the parking garage. So was Charlotte's. My breath stopped. For a second, I convinced myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe she had come to confront him. Maybe Daniel was there too. Maybe this was the final conversation everyone needed to have. I used my key and opened the door quietly. The apartment smelled like red wine and Ethan's cologne. Music played softly from the living room. Our anniversary playlist. The one I made for him after our first year together. I walked in. Ethan and Charlotte were sitting on opposite ends of the couch, but the scene still knocked the air out of me. There was a bottle of expensive wine on the table, the one I had saved for our anniversary. Ethan was wearing the same black silk shirt from Valentine's Day. Charlotte looked pale, rigid, furious. She stood the second she saw me. "Vanessa." Ethan jumped up too, his face draining of color. "It's not what it looks like." I almost laughed. Because everyone says that when it is exactly bad enough. Charlotte immediately stepped toward me. "I came here to tell him to stop contacting me. Daniel knows I'm here, I swear." I looked at her, then at Ethan. He was crying before I even spoke. "She's lying," he said suddenly. Charlotte froze. I did too. Ethan pointed at her with shaking hands. "She led me on. She liked the attention. She made me think there was something there." Charlotte's face changed. Not sadness. Not fear. Disgust. "You're unbelievable," she whispered. And then Ethan turned to me with tears running down his face. "Vanessa, please. I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted." That sentence destroyed the last soft part of me. Because he still thought this was about confusion. It wasn't. It was about choice. He chose to chase my best friend. He chose to humiliate me. He chose to lie. He chose to ruin my name when he got caught. I walked past both of them into the bedroom and pulled out a suitcase. Ethan followed me, begging. "I love you." I folded shirts with shaking hands. I made a mistake. I packed my passport, laptop, contracts, jewelry box. "Vanessa, say something." I finally turned around. "You didn't make a mistake, Ethan. You made a plan." His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Rachel arrived 20 minutes later, after I texted her one word. She helped me pack in silence, while Ethan stood in the hallway crying like he was the victim of a tragedy he had authored himself. Before leaving, I took one final look around the apartment. The couch where we watched movies. The kitchen where he danced with me barefoot. The window where we talked about marriage. It was strange how a place could become unfamiliar while all your things were still inside it. I left my key on the counter. Ethan reached for my wrist. Rachel stepped between us. "Don't touch her." I looked at him one last time. "We're done." He shook his head like he refused to understand. "No, you don't mean that." But I did. For the first time in weeks, I meant every word. That night, I blocked his number. I thought ending it would stop the bleeding. I had no idea Ethan was about to make sure everyone heard his version first. The smear campaign started quietly, almost elegantly. That was the terrifying part. Ethan understood people. He knew exactly how to manipulate emotions without sounding dramatic enough to expose himself immediately. He never directly called me abusive at first. He simply planted ideas carefully, like poison dropped into water, one slow drop at a time. He told people I had become obsessive after starting my company, that I constantly monitored his whereabouts, that I hated when women spoke to him, that I isolated him emotionally. Then came the edited screenshots. He cropped conversations so my reactions appeared irrational, while his provoking messages were missing entirely. In one screenshot, I looked furious over him having lunch with a coworker. What he conveniently removed was the part where he admitted lying about where he was for 3 hours. By then, I barely recognized my own life anymore. People who once hugged me warmly at events now avoided eye contact. A woman I had mentored professionally canceled coffee plans without explanation. Even worse, some people pitied Ethan, the handsome, emotional boyfriend trapped with the cold, career-obsessed woman. It was such a cliché story. And people love clichés because they require no critical thinking. Meanwhile, Charlotte and Daniel were dealing with their own nightmare. After Charlotte exposed the screenshots, Ethan became obsessed with proving she had led him on. He sent her long, emotional emails late at night, alternating between apology and accusation. Daniel showed me some of them. Reading them made my skin crawl. One message said, "You looked at me differently that night. Don't pretend you didn't feel it too." Another read, "Vanessa never saw me the way you did." The worst one simply said, "If you had chosen me, none of this would have happened." That message haunted me for days, because it revealed something ugly beneath everything else. This was never only about attraction. It was entitlement. Ethan genuinely believed he deserved Charlotte, simply because he wanted her badly enough. And when reality rejected him, he punished everyone around him for it. 2 weeks after Charlotte's email, I stayed late at the office trying to catch up on the damage this scandal had done to my business. The city outside my windows glowed silver beneath the rain. Most employees had already gone home, leaving the building eerily quiet. Around 6:30, my assistant called through the intercom. "Vanessa, Ethan is downstairs." Every muscle in my body tightened instantly. I almost told security to remove him. Almost. But exhaustion makes people reckless sometimes. And some part of me wanted answers I still didn't have. "Send him up," I said quietly. The moment he stepped into my office, I barely recognized him. The Ethan I once knew cared obsessively about appearance. Perfect hair, tailored clothes, controlled posture. This version looked wrecked. Dark circles hollowed beneath his eyes. His jacket was wrinkled. His hands shook slightly as he closed the office door behind him. For a moment, he simply stared at me. And suddenly, I saw it. Not love. Not regret. Obsession. The kind that consumes people from the inside. "You look tired," he whispered. I almost laughed at the absurdity. "You destroyed my personal life and nearly damaged my company permanently. Of course I look tired." His face crumpled immediately. "I never meant for it to go this far. There shouldn't have been a beginning at all." Silence stretched between us. Rain tapped softly against the glass windows behind me. Then Ethan sat down slowly across from my desk and buried his face in his hands. And finally, he told the truth. Not all at once. It came out in pieces. Fragments. Confessions wrapped in excuses. He admitted he started developing feelings for Charlotte nearly 6 months earlier. At first, he told himself it was harmless admiration. "She just seemed perfect," he said weakly. "Confident, elegant. Everyone listened when she talked." I stared at him coldly. "She's my best friend." "I know." "Daniel is your friend too." "I know." But knowing never stopped him. That was the problem. Ethan confessed he became obsessed after attending a dinner party at Charlotte and Daniel's penthouse months ago. He watched the way Daniel looked at her, the way Charlotte carried herself effortlessly through the room, and started comparing everything in our relationship afterward. He compared my clothes to hers, my personality to hers, even my career. "You were always working," he muttered quietly. "Always exhausted, always distracted." The words stung, not because they were entirely false, But because I had spent those exhausting years building a future for us, while he spent them fantasizing about someone else. Then came the part that made my stomach twist. The Valentine's party wasn't spontaneous. It was planned. Every part of it. The watch, the shirt, the flirting, even the wine spill. Ethan admitted he deliberately switched the seating cards so he could sit beside Charlotte during dinner. And the wine accident? He practiced it beforehand. Actually practiced it. "I thought if I got her alone," he whispered. I felt physically ill. "You cornered her intentionally." "I just wanted her to finally admit there was something between us." "There was nothing between you." His face tightened. "She looked at me sometimes. She looked at you because you were making her uncomfortable." That silence afterward was suffocating. But he still wasn't done. The apartment night, the one that replayed in my nightmares constantly, was also partially orchestrated. Ethan confessed he invited Charlotte over under the excuse of wanting closure. He begged her to meet him one final time so he could apologize properly before leaving her and Daniel alone forever. Charlotte only agreed because Daniel encouraged her to end things clearly and permanently. But Ethan had interpreted her agreeing to come as hope. That was why he opened the wine. Why he played our anniversary playlist. Why he wore the same shirt from Valentine's Day. Not for me. Never for me. For her. The humiliation of that realization nearly crushed me in my chair. All those years together. And suddenly, I felt like a background character inside my own relationship. Then Ethan said the one thing I will probably remember for the rest of my life. "I think I stopped seeing you clearly a long time ago." The honesty of it hit harder than any lie. Because finally, for one brutal second, he stopped manipulating. And I realized something terrifying. He truly believed his feelings justified everything he had done. The lies, the humiliation, the destruction of my reputation, the obsession. All because he convinced himself he deserved another woman more than he valued the one standing beside him. He started crying then. Not dramatic crying. Not manipulative tears. Just ugly, broken sobs from someone finally collapsing beneath the weight of their own choices. "I ruined everything," he whispered. "Yes," I answered calmly. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me." I looked at him for a long moment. And strangely, I felt nothing. No rage. No love. No revenge. Just exhaustion. "I need you to listen carefully," I said quietly. He lifted his head. "You are never contacting me again." His breathing hitched immediately. "Vanessa." "No." I stood slowly from my chair. "You don't get access to me anymore. Not after what you did." "I can fix this. You tried to destroy me because you couldn't have someone else." His face went white. "That isn't..." "It is." The truth sat between us like shattered glass. And for once, he couldn't talk his way around it. I walked to the office door and opened it. "You need to leave." He stood there frozen for several seconds, like he genuinely believed I might change my mind. I didn't. Eventually, he walked toward the elevator without another word. But just before the doors closed, he looked back at me. And the expression in his eyes chilled me completely. Not anger. Not sadness. Hope. Like some part of him still believed this story wasn't over. That night, after everyone left the office, I sat alone in the dark, staring out across the city. For months, I had blamed myself. Repeatedly. Maybe I worked too much. Maybe I ignored warning signs. Maybe I failed him somehow. But finally, I understood the truth. Someone else's betrayal is not proof that you were unworthy of love. Sometimes it's simply proof that they were willing to destroy everything good in pursuit of something they invented in their own head. And unfortunately, Ethan Brooks wasn't finished destroying things yet. 3 months after Valentine's Day, my life finally started becoming recognizable again. Not normal. I don't think people ever fully return to who they were before betrayal splits their world open. But recognizable. The rumors slowly died after Ethan's confession reached the people who mattered most. Charlotte and Daniel privately shared additional screenshots with several mutual friends, including proof that Ethan had continued contacting Charlotte even after she repeatedly rejected him. Once people saw the full picture, the narrative changed quickly. Funny how fast sympathy disappears when the charming victim mask finally slips. Danielle apologized to me in person. She showed up at my office carrying coffee from my favorite cafe and burst into tears before she even sat down. "I should have trusted you," she whispered. Part of me wanted to comfort her. Another part was too tired. "I needed people to ask me what happened before deciding who I was," I told her quietly. She nodded while crying harder. That became the pattern afterward. Apologies. Embarrassed texts. Avoidant eye contact at social gatherings. People hate realizing they helped destroy someone innocent. Professionally, things improved too. Several clients who initially distanced themselves returned after the truth spread. One company executive even admitted privately that he had almost canceled a major contract because of the abuse rumors surrounding me. Hearing that made me physically sick. A few lies from the right person at the wrong time can dismantle years of work. That realization changed me permanently. I became more careful after that. More private. More guarded. Rachel said my eyes looked older. Maybe they did. Meanwhile, Charlotte and I spent weeks slowly rebuilding our friendship. Not because I blamed her. I didn't. But trauma leaves strange bruises behind, even on innocent people. For a while, every time I looked at her, I remembered Ethan staring at her across candlelight, like I wasn't even there. And Charlotte carried guilt too. One afternoon we sat together at a quiet cafe downtown, while rain slid against the windows outside. She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup before finally speaking. "I should have told you sooner." I shook my head immediately. "He manipulated everyone. But I saw the signs earlier than you did." Her voice cracked slightly. "I kept hoping he'd stop." That sentence stayed with me afterward because it explained so many tragedies in life. People wait for discomfort to fix itself. They minimize, rationalize, delay confrontation because they fear destruction. But sometimes, silence simply gives manipulation room to grow. Daniel eventually convinced both of us to attend their engagement celebration, despite how awkward everything felt. I almost didn't go. The thought of walking into another crowded room after everything Ethan had done made my chest tighten. But Rachel convinced me. "You deserve to exist somewhere without shame," she told me firmly. So I went. Charlotte's engagement party was held at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city skyline. Warm lights glowed above white floral arrangements, while soft jazz drifted through the evening air. It should have felt romantic. Instead, I spent the first hour fighting the urge to leave. Trauma is strange like that. A champagne glass breaking across the room made my entire body tense because it reminded me of Valentine's night. Charlotte noticed immediately. She quietly squeezed my hand beneath the table. "You're safe here." Those words nearly made me cry. Because for months, I hadn't felt safe anywhere. Not socially. Not emotionally. Not even inside my own thoughts. But little by little, the evening softened. People treated me gently again, instead of cautiously. Daniel toasted Charlotte publicly while looking at her like she was the center of gravity itself. And for the first time in months, I realized something important. Real love does not humiliate you publicly. It does not manipulate your reality. It does not punish you for feeling hurt. Watching them together healed something inside me I didn't realize was still bleeding. Around halfway through the evening, Rebecca approached quietly beside me at the balcony railing. "You know Ethan tried contacting Mark last week, right?" My stomach tightened immediately. "What?" Rebecca looked uncomfortable. "He asked if you were dating anyone." I felt cold all over. He lost the right to know anything about me. I know, she said quickly. Mark shut it down immediately, but the information stayed with me long after the party ended. Because Ethan hadn't moved on. Not emotionally. Not mentally. And deep down, I think everyone understood that. A week later, Charlotte forwarded me an email Ethan had sent her from a new address after she blocked the previous ones. It only contained one sentence. If Vanessa would just talk to me, she'd understand we belong together. That sentence frightened me more than all his anger ever had. Because obsession always sounds romantic inside the mind of the obsessed. I documented everything after that. Every email. Every indirect message. Every attempt to reach me through mutual friends. Rachel even convinced me to speak with an attorney, just in case things escalated further. Thankfully, they never did. At least, not publicly. Over time, Ethan faded into the background of my life, like smoke finally clearing after a fire. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he switched jobs after things became uncomfortable socially. Apparently, several coworkers discovered the truth about what happened and stopped associating with him entirely. Part of me felt satisfaction hearing that. Another part just felt sad. Not because I missed him, but because I mourned the version of him I thought existed. The man who used to dance with me barefoot in our kitchen while pasta boiled on the stove. The man who kissed my forehead before stressful investor meetings. The man who once looked at me like I was enough. I eventually accepted something painful. Sometimes the person you loved was real in certain moments, and still not real enough to build a future with. Healing came slowly after that. Some mornings I woke up angry. Some mornings relieved. Some mornings embarrassed that I ignored warning signs for so long. But eventually, the humiliation faded. And in its place came clarity. I started traveling more for work. I renovated my new apartment exactly how I wanted, without compromising on anything. I went to therapy consistently. I learned how to exist without constantly questioning my own instincts. And maybe most importantly, I stopped blaming myself for another person's selfishness. 6 months after the breakup, Rachel asked me something while helping me unpack boxes in my apartment. If Ethan walked through that door right now, crying and apologizing, she said carefully, what would you do? I thought about it honestly, then answered, I'd ask him to leave. Not because I hated him anymore, but because peace became more valuable than closure. That was the real ending of this story. Not revenge. Not reconciliation. Not dramatic justice. Just choosing myself after spending too long trying to earn love from someone determined to chase illusions instead. And honestly, that choice saved my life.